Investors and everyday people coming together to make something new. Venture capital used to be a private party, but not anymore. You are
stuffing money under my mattress.
no, yeah, don't. Just don't.
What do I do with it? Put it in the bank?
It's basically the same thing. Savings pays less than the rate of inflation. So if you're hiding money, your loot
really wasn't about abortion. It was about maintaining divisiveness. With it being at the court, it maintained this unstable framework that both sides, to some degree, used politically to generate concern and instability and raise money and all of that. But what it also did is it protected Democratic politicians. It protected politicians in general. They didn't have to deal with it at the state level. They didn't have to deal with it in the House and the Senate, because this is, in fact, a political issue and should reflect what people in a particular state want, whether it's California or Georgia or North Dakota. But then if you do that, that means that a politician is going to have to take a stand. Someone's going to have to write a bill. That the good news is, and I would disagree that this is just a pro-life victory, it clearly is, but that this means there's going to be more activism from state to state. The state activism levels and voting levels have been so low. Maybe it's time for people to get more involved. Women are the majority of voters in this country. Have women not been voting for various reasons? So this takes it back, brings it closer to the people, which is what the far left and liberals in general, classical liberals, have been arguing for, to have their voices heard. At the Supreme Court, they're shut out. This is a done deal in D.C. between the deal makers. Well, now that it's back at state houses, you actually can be heard. You can make a difference. You can vote. You can have a protest, a nice protest that doesn't involve threatening to kill people, but actually do activism.
Sorry,
for
guys.
change. I believe the left knows it doesn't know how to do that anymore. They've relied on this kind of hammer for half a century, and they don't know how to persuade. That's why they're desperate here, and they only know how to threaten, burn things down, have assassins somewhere, attack churches. It's about violence and intimidation and fear. That's what they're afraid of. But the average person benefits from this. The average American benefits from this because it brings it back to the core of what the people want. And we'll see what happens from state to state. I think it is a proper, good decision. I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg would agree in that regard for the very same reason.
That's how the opinion begins. They said for 185 years, states decided abortion law until 1973.
I don't know who didn't get hit by all shards of that mic she just dropped. I mean, Tammy, you hit the nail on the head, and that's it. It is about participation. It is about ownership. It is about all of that. And when Obama had majorities, he spent his capital on Obamacare. Mm-hmm. And this issue didn't even get talked about because it had already been settled. It had already been done. And there was already a groundswell in this country about, well, can we have the conversation? I find this to be really important. It is a look at why are most Americans for keeping Roe versus Wade when most Americans think abortion should be mostly always illegal. A Fox News poll found that let it stand. 63% said right now, going into today, let it stand. 27% said let Roe versus Wade be overturned. Yet, should abortion be legal? 54% said no, it should be illegal. 44 said legal. It's exactly what you're saying. It's more complicated than hitting us all over the head with a hammer on an issue, but letting America figure out how it wants to debate the issue and making a copious argument for why they believe what they believe, not just joining the masses and saying, don't do this one thing or do this one thing. Why do you believe what you believe? Walk it out. Use your words, not your hands.
That's right.
One of the most powerful arguments, too, that I saw in the opinion is page 6, and it talks about how we are among 6 other countries that allow elective abortion after 20 weeks. So that should tell you something when you're a pariah among nations in the world with your abortion law, among the good company, as Justice Roberts said during oral arguments. In North Korea and the People's Republic of China, we're out of step with other countries. So why not let the people decide? New Jersey will decide differently from Florida, who will decide differently from Georgia.
I think it's important, and I'm going to pick up one of those shards that came from that microphone. One, this was a great week for the Constitution. to Tammy's point about bigger than that. You had an education case in Maine that was decided that freedom of choice in education cannot be restricted. You had a Second Amendment case important to the protection of Americans. And now you have this case. This is the Constitution working as it is designed. And again, with the ability to amend if there's a problem, back to the point of the people's choice. So it's important to see this. And I want Americans to look at this from that perspective, that now their voices can be heard at those state levels. That's an important part of this, closest to home, where their legislators are literally sometimes living in the same neighborhood. But what we see here is something that overturns fakery in part on courts when they're activists. And I don't like an activist court. It's not a right or left court for me. It's a constitutional court that decides on what exists and what is written. I'm an originalist. And I think when we're originalists, the country's better.
The country is better.
EV is everything now. And while buying a V is a big
Thank you for
decision,
tuning into our
how do you
ads.
get your
Better off. And for the nations around the world, by the way, we were the aberration. Some of these socialist countries that liberals love so much, they had those prohibitions on late-term abortions. Mississippi case is important. It's that 15-week limit. They're going to lie on the many of these left-wing networks and tell you abortion's over, it's illegal, you're going to jail, it'll be back alleys and hangers again. Sorry to be crude, but that's what they're pushing out there. And it's not what it is. The American people have now been given back their constitution, whether you agree or disagree, to exercise your right.
Exactly. And at the time Roe was decided, the justices point out, the majority opinion, 30 states prohibited abortion except to save the life of the mother. And all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, 9 justices overruled the opinions of 30 states. Is that how the process should work, Jay?
Right. And then in that case, because the left got what it wanted, then it was okay. And that's one conversation to have. But Kaylee, what's really interesting here is how misinformed people are about this.
Great.
I've been getting texts all morning saying, abortion's illegal. David, to your point, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Everybody just needs to take a deep breath. They need to digest this. I actually think might have been, intentional to drop this opinion on a Friday. So people have the weekend to kind of think about it, to read through it, to watch some of the coverage and understand what's really happening out there. Abortion is not going to be illegal in this country. It might be in certain states, and people have to internalize that, and they need to think about what it means, where they want to live, what they want to support. Nancy Pelosi was on earlier. She said reproductive freedom is on the ballot in November. It is. Go make your voice heard. Go get out there. You're talking about the activism.
Get out there.
Change is very hard to absorb. And I think there are a lot of people that just, get frustrated
Get
by
out there
it
and
or
make a
scared of it.
difference, guys.
Go make your voice heard.
Exactly. We're going to bring in.
Let me just add on to that very quickly. Fear has been at the basis of everything the left has done, making people afraid of everything. And the stations and the news outlets are promoting this idea, this lie, that abortion's illegal, because they want to see this movement. This is the only way that the Democrats know how to organize people is through emotion. They don't organize through, let's talk about the issues and figure this out. Secondarily, when we talk about people can move out of a state, right, this does remain an issue for women who are on the margins, women who are poor, where the economy is destroying a flexible income. Women of color in certain urban areas don't have the luxury of leaving. And this brings up another issue that no one wants to talk about, which is this is an economic issue. Is like, why are certain women not able to leave and have to deal with morality legislation effectively that stops their ability to have control of their own lives, including having a baby, even if it's unexpected, is because you would have enough money to be able to do so, that you don't have to worry about that. But many women aren't going to be able to leave. And this is why I would hope certain states, while they may have draconian laws that ban it entirely, that there is room to think about that 15-week ban like in Mississippi, where there is the quickening, so that there is an option for women who do not have certain resources, cannot move, and are limited in the options that they have. I think many states will realize that in this 21st century, that Americans want some flexibility, but not to the point of birth.
Well, and I think that's what some of that polling was telling us. And in your home state of Florida, that's what we may see. I mean, Congressman Byron Donalds was on during the breaking news on the Faulkner Focus last hour, and he said, because I was saying, oh my gosh, so states are already triggering. which brings us to a whole new level of legality. Will there be stays on those triggers to ban? Roe versus Wade triggered Missouri to become the very first in the nation to effectively end abortion with their AG opinion. So, it's already happening. And what does that mean? And what Congressman Donald said for Florida is they're going to take a look at this immediately. And where they will fall is probably somewhere in the middle, as you say, depending on what their economic and other types of healthcare burdens and so on is, and what their own constituents want. It's an interesting
David,
point.
we'll get to you in just one moment because we want to bring in Andy McCarthy. Andy, thank you for joining us. One thing I want to dispel, we're hearing a lot of apoplectic rhetoric on the other side that this means the end of certain marriage opinions, contraception opinions, but the majority opinion addresses page 13, page 32. Go look it up for yourself. Those of you watching, it differentiates Roe from those cases, saying specifically abortion is different because it destroys what those decisions have called fetal life. Can you share with us why those specific rights are very much differentiated from those at issue in Roe?
Well, I actually think the problem and the strongest argument from the pro-abortion side is precisely that they're not that different. And the reason that the court needed to make an emphatic statement that what we're doing here doesn't affect that line of precedent is if you logically apply what the court is saying here, what they're saying is we are not going to derive a right unless...
I don't think we care what that guy has to say. The guy's a clown.
It is...
Does Joe Biden speak? Is that... What's the word on that? I'd love to see that.
So says that money stalled. Senate saying we got ours
DC
together. House,
call to
come on and
action.
pass.
Get out there and protest. No, you don't. You don't want to rock and roll, and you hate your life. No one cares about ads.
I think it's unfortunate that violence, for certain people is the answer here. And of course, as we've been watching this play out since the draft opinion was leaked, violence hasn't been challenged in any way. It is not legal to protest at the home of a Supreme Court justice. As we debate.
Okay. What other news we got? Here we go.
Today, the Supreme Court of the United States expressly took away the constitutional right from the American people that it had already recognized.
Boo!
They didn't limit it, they simply took it away. That's never been done to a right so important to so many Americans.
The court affirmed that the power to protect unborn life is returned to the people. The people have won a victory.
The people.
The right to life has been vindicated.
America.
The voiceless will finally have a voice.
There's no point in saying good morning, because it certainly is not one. This morning, the radical Supreme Court is eviscerating Americans' rights and endangering their health and safety. But the Congress will continue to act to overcome this extremism and protect the American people.
I woke up this morning praying for this, and I never thought that it would happen. This was a big win, not only for South Texas, because we are pro-life, somos pro vida, but it's also a big win for our country. If we want to see real change in bringing crime down, we need to raise a generation to respect life in the womb.
That's why just in the last 2 weeks, I signed a sweeping package of bills, not just the money we allocated, but also said we're going to protect and give immunity to abortion providers here in the state of New York, because they are at risk of lawsuits in other states where they give a personal right of individual to sue, a personal right of action. So we took those steps. And we're going to continue to find other ways that can protect. The rights of women are sacred in New York. The rights of women will never be jeopardized under my watch in this state. You can count on that.
Prayers were answered today. The decades of work is celebrated today.
Right.
But the work just begins now to go and protect
victory
life
for America.
More, because the Supreme Court's decision overturning Roe v. Wade correcting that flawed decision finally allows states and Congress to protect life in ways that we never were able to for the last 50 years.
I've warned about how this decision risked the broader right to privacy for everyone. That's because Roe recognized the fundamental right to privacy that has served as a basis for so many more rights that we've come to take for granted, that are ingrained in the fabric of this country. The right to make the best decisions for your health. The right to use birth control. A married couple in the privacy of their bedroom, for God's sake. The right to marry the person you love.
Which is still going to be the
Justice
same,
Thomas
but
said as much
still
today. He
gonna be the
explicitly
same,
called to reconsider the right of marriage equality, the right of couples to make their choices on contraception. This extreme and dangerous path the court is now taking us on.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos.
get him out. Just political theater.
You can carry out 3-topping pizzas for just $7.99 when you order Domino's online. Whether it's hand-topped,
out on reasonable regulation of abortion. And so we've seen that's what led to the Senate going into.
I don't even think we care about that.
Landscaping looked great. The grass came in great this year.
Right?
Yeah, I really will.
the AstroTurf always looks good.
Here's her video right here.
Isn't she darling? She is so cute.
She's already had number one song or two. Congratulations to her. She's our featured performer. Also, if you're in the Midtown area and you think, what smells so good? It's because we've got the Macklemores from Masterbuilt. They are cooking out on our veranda, as Brian says. And what are you making for our brunch today, guys? What do you call it?
Dad, so I don't think Dad's earpiece is working, but they're asking about what we're cooking them for the VIP's All-American Summer Concert with Southern Arts.
We've got some pulled pork, smoked mac and cheese, baked beans with some bacon bits in them. And then we've sent in to you guys some pig in the blankets. We've got a little pimento cheese with some sausage topped off with some peppers. And right now we're doing bacon wrapped pork tenderloin.
And the VIPs that wrote in get a chance to have all this stuff.
They're the ones in attendance. Toast kebabs with the pork belly is on the platter.
That's right.
Make sure you do a little bit of that maple syrup over the top.
A little bit of that maple
syrup.
So this is pork belly, these great big 1-inch cubes of meat.
That's a reverse seared burn-in pork belly.
Yes.
Those are the bites, and then what's on the kebab is a French toast kebab of the pork belly.
Got the French toast recipe from Bailey, our youngest daughter. Amazing cook.
That's right. And yes, to answer your question, guys, the VIPs get all of this food prepared for them this morning. So
Y'all are so nice to do that and come up from Georgia.
Where do you get your sticks? Do you make them yourself?
The steaks?
No, the sticks to make the kebab.
I think I heard that. Steaks? We actually had a local meat market.
No, the sticks.
Sticks, man. The sticks.
You buy them at the skewers or at the grocery store.
Yeah. We don't know those, Brian.
I'm sorry, I'm losing you guys.
I don't know where you get.
Brian, they brought chicken in for you.
I know.
And you know what else? You know what these guys do make? They make the best grills and smokers in the world.
I did hear that. Thank you so much for that.
You bet, John.
Suddenly you can hear everything.
And John Sr., how do you stay so young?
Yeah, they're asking how you stay so young.
Is it moisturizer?
I eat as healthy as I can, which is tough, and I got great kids and a great wife. My family.
He does have one gray right there.
My family keeps me young.
Well, thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you later.
Yeah. One chooses to wear an apron, the other one doesn't. I think that's they're
They look like brothers. I can't believe that's the father.
right.
The pulled pork is off the chart.
It is so good.
Well, if your kids do not stress you out, you end up looking around the same age. But if it starts stressing you out, then that really lengthens
Do you
the
have
age.
a confession about your kids?
No, you got to make the judge and all. You got to be the judge.
All right, let's talk about gun control because late last night, the Senate passed a bipartisan gun safety bill, fast-tracking this measure to go to the House. Who is expected to take just expected to take a vote in just a few hours from now, today, on Friday.
It's about 80 pages. And some, and I think it's just complaints, say, why are we rushing? Let me just take my time and go through this. Others say it's just 80 pages. You can get through it. It's $750 million over the next 5 years. But what's in it is the key. On the same day, the Supreme Court overturned a century-old limiting gun rights in New York. It's been on the books since 1911. No more. It's setting the stage for more turmoil over firearms. Griff Jenkins is live in Washington, D.C. with a breakdown on both.
Send some of that barbecue down here. They've been working hard all across Washington. The High Court and the Senate weighing in on gun rights. Amazingly, on the same day, but in very different ways, Senate Democrats needed 10 Republicans. They got 15 in a 65-33 vote. You can see them here. Minority Leader Mitch McConnell supported that. Senator John Cornyn led the negotiations in it. Now, the key provisions include these: red flag laws taking away guns from people deemed dangerous, expanding background checks to include juvenile records, and closing that so-called boyfriend loophole barring domestic abusers from purchasing firearms. The bill does now head to the House, where we believe the Rules Committee is already starting to work on it right now. Expect GOP opposition, but we likely think it will indeed pass, possibly later today. Meanwhile, across the street, the Supreme Court striking down a New York law that heavily restricts concealed carry permits for gun owners. In a 6-3 decision, Justice Clarence Thomas wrote this, quote, "It prevents law-abiding citizens with ordinary self-defense needs from exercising their right to keep and bear arms." He added, "We know of no other constitutional right that an individual may exercise only after demonstrating to government officers some special need." Down Pennsylvania Avenue, President Biden at the White House had this reaction.
The gun laws in 40 of these states are still in place based on the decision. Not good enough, but it's. I think it's a bad decision. I think it's not reasoned accurately, but I'm disappointed.
Now, the decision only impacts a handful of states, but it will likely open the door for future challenges to other gun laws. Finally, we are closely watching the High Court again today because we expect more decisions, particularly that Dobbs abortion case that could overturn Roe v. Wade. And we're hearing protesters on both sides of that issue are gathering as we speak. Brian Ainsley and Steve.
Unbelievable series of events and decisions. Thanks, Griff, for breaking it down. So let's talk about what's happening. This bipartisan bill, which has been worked on really extensively for the last 3 weeks since the shooting in Uvalde in particular, headed up by John Cornyn, backed by Mitch McConnell, seems to have a lot of what the Republicans want and leaving out of a lot of what they feared. Banning of AR-15s is not to worry about. Upping the age from 18 to 21 is not in here. Having universal background checks is not part of this. School safety is. Protections for domestic abuse is. The boyfriend law loophole and red flag law is what people are going to delve into, and they should, to make sure this is implemented as it said. But keep in mind, there's no demand. There's no national red flag law. It is money set aside should states choose to use it. And if they choose to use it, it could be the reining in of some very aggressive train wreck, if I could use Kimberly Strassel's term, train wreck of implementation of the red flag law in a lot of blue states. This could have some provisions and restrictions to it.
Well, it's just refreshing that Congress is actually doing something on a bipartisan basis, rather than the administration essentially governing by executive fiat, where they write an executive order and says, okay, we're going to do this, this, and this, like we're seeing on our southern border. Lawmakers from both parties got together and came up with this bill. And, the people on the left wanted more. The people on the right wanted less. They came together in the middle. 15 Republicans joined the Democrats. Mitch McConnell said this regarding it, and he's one of the 15 Republicans who signed on. He said, and I think he's absolutely right, the American people want their constitutional rights protected and their kids to be safe in school. I think we can all get behind that. He went on to say they want both of those things at once, and that is just what the bill before the Senate will have accomplished. And so now that it has passed the bill from the Senate, it goes to the Rules Committee in the House. They're going to take that up first thing this morning. They would like to get a vote on it sooner than later, probably before the 4th of July recess. And it will be on the president's desk promptly thereafter.
Well, and an example of
Democrats wanting one thing, Republicans wanting another, and they came to a compromise. Democrats said no AR-15s for anyone under the age of 21. Republicans said, you know what, let's do an extensive background check on anyone under 21 who wants to buy a gun, make sure they don't have any mental health issues and that kind of thing. So that was the compromise.
Would have stopped Buffalo and Uvalde.
You're right. You're right. Yes.
Because both the shooters were 18 years old.
Right.
But they had
And
mental
had mental
problems and intervention and
teachers that
interactions.
made comments about them in the past saying,
Absolutely.
this is the
Future
one
school
student
shooter.
I worried about the most. Exactly. So you interviewed Representative Claudia Tenney earlier, and she was praising the High Court on this ruling. Listen to this.
I'm just honored to have led 175 of my colleagues in the House on this great win. And this is really just a win, not just for New Yorkers, but it's a win for Americans. Justice Thomas outlined that the Second Amendment should be read using the plain language, that this is a right, it's a constitutional right, it's not a second-class right, as he calls it. And I think finally we have a 6-3 court ruling that this is actually a right to bear arms, not just in your home, but outside.
Now, that's the second part of this topic. She was talking about the Supreme Court because they ruled in favor of gun owners here in New York. It used to be that for 108 years, this law has been on the books. And it basically said you have to show cause in order to carry a gun in the state of New York. You have to have so much evidence showing us that you need to be carrying a gun. And it's extremely hard to get a gun to be able to carry it on the streets of New York.
Right.
And now this changes everything for not just New York, for 6 states, 6 total states.
Right, and the states are New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Massachusetts, California, Hawaii. Historically, what the justices said yesterday by a 6-3 majority is the states didn't offer the residents a clear path to carry a gun to defend themselves. And what the Supreme Court said essentially is your Second Amendment right does not disappear when you walk out the door. So where do we go from here? According to the New York Times, they write this morning, the Supreme Court ruling does not immediately nullify or revise these state laws. It makes clear that the laws are unconstitutional, and it's forcing state officials to revamp them. And so Governor Hochul here in New York State is probably going to call for a special session of the legislature in about a month to address the gun laws in New York.
So Chad, this is going to be everything about her fight in New York, too, because you know that Lee Zeldin, who's leading in most of the polls, they came out in praise of this. And this was 2 Republican lawmakers who, Elise Stefanik, as well as Claudia Tenney, who we just heard from, who said that, we helped do this fight. And essentially, this was it. We had a couple of New Yorkers decided they wanted to file a petition. They've got all the way up to the Supreme Court. An amicus brief was filed, led by Elise Stefanik and Claudia Tenney, to put this front and center and say it's unconstitutional to take away my Second Amendment. Justice Thomas says you're right, but Justice Breyer in dissent says, there's been 275 mass shootings since January, and the data showing that gun violence is surpassing car crashes, leading cause, and he goes on and on and on about that. And then in retort, essentially Justice Alito basically says, what does that have to do with this? He says, does dissent think that the laws like New York prevent or deter these atrocities? Will a person bent on carrying out a mass shooting be stopped if he knows that it's illegal to carry a handgun outside the home? And how does the dissent account for the fact that one of the mass shootings took place in Buffalo, New York 3 weeks ago with these restrictive gun policies in place? So that's the debate that we've been having, that this happened at the highest court in the land. This is going to be quite interesting because in it is a 2-page missive from Justice Brett Kavanaugh that says, hey, guys, this is not without restrictions. List the places that you don't want to see carry guns. So maybe you want courthouses, maybe you want hospitals, maybe you want schools, maybe you want houses of worships. That's going to be what the special session is. But it's really hard to argue with the fact that we have a Second Amendment in our Constitution. And so far, despite what everybody wants gun safety, they're also buying guns, especially the Black community, up 58% in terms of purchases. Hispanics up 49% in terms of purchases. Overall, gun purchases up since 2020, 30%. So you could say what you want about this culture, guns got to go. They're not going anywhere.
I think there's several reasons for that. I think people are scared that their gun rights are going to be taken away. They want to go ahead and have them. They want to buy them now. And I think also because crime is going up. I mean, look at
That's it.
Yeah, crime is going up in every
dangerous
major
everywhere.
city around the country. And so people want to protect their families. And that's why they're buying guns and taking all these classes to learn how to shoot
Yeah, you
guns. More
defund the
women are
cops.
doing that.
You tell the cops they can't do anything, and then you want to tell people that they can't use their gun. Excuse me, we have a self-preservation gene in us as Americans.
Yeah, well, I mean, after the governor said that this was deeply disappointing, Jill Savage, the Outkick reporter, said, she tweeted this out: sorry, the Constitution happened to you, because the Supreme Court said it violated the 2nd and 14th Amendment, and they said you cannot take away the right from a law-abiding citizen to carry a gun to protect him or her.
That's
herself.
right. So yesterday, by the Supreme Court, a gigantic win for gun owners and people worried about their Second Amendment rights. The Supreme Court will kick off with more decisions at 10 o'clock this morning. They will issue them every probably 10 or 15 minutes. Roe v. Wade could come up today. I think they've got 8 or 9 judgments to be meted out later on. Meanwhile, we don't know exactly who these illegal migrants are, but we've got video of hundreds walking alongside the highway in Eagle
chaos.
Pass, Texas, which is east of the Rio Grande Valley. And there are hundreds of them. It is unclear if they, have been processed by Border Patrol or if they have been paroled. Remember, the Department of Homeland Security said we are going to start paroling people, migrants, for significant public benefit, is how they said it, essentially because of overcrowded facilities. And so we don't know exactly who these people are, but they are clearly newly in this country. And, if the Border Patrol wanted to apprehend them, they'd be there. But for some reason, there they are, hundreds, just alongside the road.
And Republicans are saying we can't do anything about this unless we have Mexico on board. And the president of Mexico decided not to go to the Summit of the Americas in California. Remember, was it a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
What
And
a diss. What a diss.
Exactly. And he said, I will go and meet with Joe Biden at the White House in July. So in that meeting, they're expected to talk about a number of things, but when they have talked in the past, they haven't talked about fentanyl. And so Republican congressmen and women are now saying, we need y'all to discuss this issue because so many Americans, especially American children, who might try a painkiller for the first time laced with fentanyl, and they are dying. And they're saying this is a major problem. So Senator Bill Hagerty has said this needs to be topic number 1, fentanyl, and number 2, human trafficking. He says, if I were looking at an agenda that I think would be appropriate for that meeting, fentanyl would be at the very top of the list. Human trafficking would come in right after that. Border security and national security issues that we share with Mexico.
But those scenes of these flights landing in your cities in the middle of the night, those scenes at the border, our Border Patrol overwhelmed, and they're being sanctioned when they try to do their job, like what happened with those mounted troops at the border, led one to believe that the Democratic Party has abandoned or taken for granted the Hispanic community. That occurred to Congresswoman Mayra Flores, who says the Democratic Party has left the building.
The Democratic Party has abandoned the Hispanic community. They're focused on white liberals. They're not focused on the Hispanic community. They can care less, and they just are not representing our values. Again, we're all about faith and family and hard work, and that's not the Democratic Party. But what's happening in South Texas is a Mayra Flores wave. I'm fighting for the conservative values that we were instilled, and I think that it's important that we continue fighting for those values. And look, I'm not loyal to a party. I'll say it over and over. My loyalty is with God and with my family and with my community. And I believe that it's time to put Texas District 34 first.
She is uniquely qualified to talk about this. She's the first Mexican-born congresswoman in history. Her husband's Border Patrol. She was sworn in by Nancy Pelosi on Tuesday, spoke on the floor on Wednesday. Thursday, she talked to us. She is having a great week. But of course, she's only serving until November because it was all part of a special election. So, her district is 85% Hispanic. Will she win re-election? She's trying to get as much done as she can quickly. And so far, she's hit the ground running.
Right. But Carly, as you know, they've redistricted, and it's going to be harder for her to get 2 years now.
Yes.
That is exactly right. She is presenting herself in such a good way on all of these interviews, and she's getting so much attention for good reason. But she's facing an uphill battle.
Yep.
Well, that's annoying.
Buying a car can be an emotional.
With member prices, Expedia members can discover all the lights in Las Vegas this summer.
Republicans voted with Democrats to pass the bill. Now the House gets a chance to send it to the president's desk, which would mark the first time Congress passed a major piece of firearms legislation since 1993.
But House Republican leaders have already spoken out strongly against the bill, calling it an effort to slowly chip away at law-abiding citizens' Second Amendment rights that transforms law-abiding citizens under the age of 21 into second-class citizens. Griff Jenkins has the breaking developments from Washington. Griff, good morning.
Good morning, Carly and Joey. It is historic indeed. Democrats needed just 10 to cross the aisle on that issue that the GOP has long resisted. Then in that 65-33 vote, they got 15. Majority Leader Chuck Schumer praising the bipartisan effort. Watch.
The gun safety bill we are passing tonight can be described with 3 adjectives.
Let's hear the discussion.
Partisan.
We don't get one, do we? Because we never get one. Give me the veggies and potatoes. Again, don't get it. Well, folks. That's really about all we got. Until later. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, folks.